Good day. In this discussion, we'll be talking about feminist approach. But let's discuss first what is feminism. The social and political movement known as feminism promotes gender equality. It seeks to bring about gender equality in terms of social, political, personal, and economic spheres. The goal of feminism is to challenge and destabilize the social norms and institutions that have traditionally given preference to men over women. It covers a broad spectrum of viewpoints and methods, tackling topics including employment discrimination, women's rights, gender equality, and reproductive rights. One of the biggest misconceptions of feminism is that feminism is anti-men, when in fact, feminism once again aims for gender equality and is not about promoting women's superiority over men. It seeks to dismantle oppressive systems that affect people of all genders. It is about working toward justice and equal chances for individuals of all genders. Looking back, misogyny existed and it still is existing. Misogyny refers to the dislike, contempt, or ingrained prejudice against women. It is still prevalent in many societies worldwide. It manifests various forms including discrimination, objectification, harassment, and violence against women. Even in places with legal protections and advancements in women's rights, subtle or overt forms of misogyny persist. It can be observed in gender pay gap, gender-based violence, underrepresentation in leadership, sexism in media and culture, online abuse, and reproductive rights.
Feminism in literature is related to the ways in understanding literary works in both production and reception. Before we proceed to our main topic, let's tackle first the feminist theory and feminist lens. Feminist theory in social psychology, social philosophy, sociology, and other fields that examine the nature of social interaction, approaches that analyze and critique the foundational forms of social organization are known as critical theories. Many of these critical theories carry over into literary criticism. One of the more prominent forms of critical theory is feminist theory. Feminist theory is divided into numerous feminist theory models, but all of them begin with the same core desire to explain the oppression of women and to address both the root cause of this oppression and its after effect. Many models of feminist theory accounts for not just sex and gender, but also issue of race, class, religion, and other forms of social difference that form a basis of system of oppression. Feminist theory aims to understand the nature of gender inequality. It emerged from the feminist movement of the mid and late 20th century, and it challenges the male viewpoint and experience that dominates social and cultural analysis. Feminist theory explores the way that women are oppressed and disadvantaged by various social institutions, and it seeks to highlight the problems, issues that women face. Feminist theory encourages female traditional writing. It seeks out previously written but ignored texts written by women. It also looks at texts in terms of sexual politics, and that is how women are portrayed and who has the power. The feminist lens requires that the reader view of work of literature not just as art, but as an interrelated system of social roles, rituals, and symbols or signs. Feminist theory, like other forms of critical theory, is skeptical of the Enlightenment's perspective of a unified idea of the self that is fully aware of the reason behind its action. Feminist theory and other forms of critical theory view language and other ways of communicating ideas, such as through the socially constructed roles of sex, gender, race, class, and etc., as only meaningful insofar as they have been chosen to represent certain ideas. Feminist lens allows us to look at the text through the eyes of a feminist to closely analyze how women are portrayed and presented in comparison to men. It helps us examine how gender is a factor in peace. The main focus is on how women are portrayed, how they function, behave, are limited for being women. However, we also examine how maleness defines roles and limits men. Questions to ask when using a feminist lens. How are the female characters represented? How are they different on dramatic purpose from male character? How are they a reflection of the story's historical period, either when the author wrote it or when the author chose to set it, or a reflection of the author's attitude toward women?
What is feminist criticism? Feminist literary criticism emerged as an approach within literary studies that analyzes literature through the lens of feminism. It aims to understand how gender shapes the creation, reception, and interpretation of literary texts. There are a few key connections between feminism and the feminist approach in literary criticism. First is the critiquing gender roles and stereotypes. Feminist literary criticism examines how gender roles and stereotypes are portrayed in literature. It analyzes how male and female characters are depicted, how power dynamics play out, and how these representations reinforce or challenge societal norms. The next one is questioning patriarchal structures. Just as feminism challenges patriarchal structures in society, feminist literary criticism questions and critiques the way in which literature often reflects and perpetuates in these structures. It investigates how narratives, themes, and language may uphold or subvert patriarchal ideologies. The one is amplifying women's voices. Feminist literary critics often focus on recovering and highlighting the voices of women writers who have been historically marginalized or overlooked. They examine women's experiences, perspectives, and contributions within literary canons. Next is interrogating language and narrative. Feminist critics analyze the language, narrative techniques, and storytelling conventions employed by the author. They explore how these elements may reinforce or challenge gendered assumptions and power dynamics. And lastly, intersectionality. Like broader feminist thought, feminist literary criticism embraces intersectionality, recognizing that gender intersects with other aspects of identity, such as race, class, sexuality, and more. It explores how multiple identities influence literary representations and reception. Overall, feminist literary criticism seeks to bring attention to gender issues in literature, critique existing power structures, and foster a deeper understanding of how gender shapes literary works and their interpretations. It has contributed significantly to expanding the conversation around gender, power, and representation within the realm of literature.
So these are the frequently asked questions. These are the questions that came to our mind. Question number 1. What is the feminist lens? The feminist lens is a way of describing how a female critical theorist would view a text. It involves seeing social patterns and social constructs as not essential to our understanding of the world but as a series of choices and symbols that can change over time. Second question. What questions are asked when using feminist lenses? When working in a feminist lens, a writer will consider how are people of all gender represented in a text. especially compared to known social norms. Also, does the text treat those who fall outside the social norms of gender favorably or unfavorably? So next question. What is the main goal of feminist criticism? The main goal of feminist criticism, like other forms of criticism, using critical theory, is to examine and question established social understandings and particular ideas. In the case of feminist criticism, the focus is on the gender and the sex primarily. Fourth question. What is an example of feminist criticism? Feminist criticism, especially feminist literary criticism, may look at two texts from the same period in literary history and with similar authors of different genders, and compare the distinctions of women and women's lives in the text. Fifth question. What are the main feminist theories? There are many feminist theory models. Some of the most well-known and discussed models include Black feminist criticism, lesbian feminist criticism, feminist psychoanalysis, and feminist technoscience, or what they call feminist cyber theory. So for the last question is, what is the meaning of feminist criticism? Feminist criticism is a kind of critical theory, meaning that is a way of studying the world to continue ideas that are widely accepted without much question. In feminist criticism, the widely accepted ideas that are looked at with scrutiny are gender and sex, alongside other social identities like race, class, and etc. So our report ends here, and thank you for listening.